I represented a school guidance counselor, 59 years old, and I met him because I was in a mentor program that he ran that, not so coincidentally, my law partner, Hendler Flores, helped establish it, a middle school in Austin. I got drafted into it as a result of that, and it was a great experience. I mentored a 12-year-old seventh grader who was at that school. But by being in that program, I met this guidance counselor who ran it. And early on in the school year, he was absent for extended periods of time. And finally, he sent an email to all the mentors in the program that he had recently been diagnosed with this rare cancer called mesothelioma. He had no idea how he developed it or where he could have been exposed to asbestos, because of course asbestos is the singular cause of mesothelioma in almost everyone who is diagnosed with it. Mesothelioma really is the signature cancer of asbestos exposure. Well, it just so happened that one of his colleagues at the school had been on a jury in another mesothelioma case that I tried, and she urged him to talk to me about it. He ended up hiring me, and I sat down with him in a room off the school library. And we sat down for about an hour and a half, and I said, all right, you have no idea where you were exposed to asbestos. Let's just work backward. This was 2007, and we went backwards. Every year, what job did you do? Okay, let's go back to 2006. Let's go back to 2005. By the time we got to 1968, he told me about a summer job he had in college cutting asbestos cement pipe. Well, he didn't know it was asbestos cement pipe. He just knew it was cement water pipe. And as soon as I heard that, I realized that that was the source of asbestos, because those pipes were traditionally made with asbestos. I remember him telling me he was in Long Beach, California, and he looked up on the side of the building where he was working, because he was working in an outside yard cutting these pipes. He saw a big billboard for John's Manville. And I thought, well, John's Manville is bankrupt. They're out of business. There's really probably not much we're going to be able to do. And he said, no, I think these pipes came from Japan. And I said, Chris, how could they have come from Japan? They made them right there in California. How could it be financially competitive for a Japanese company to ship such heavy pipes across the Pacific from Japan to California? He said, I'm sure they came from Japan. He said, what I understood is that the cargo ship coming from Japan with this load of cement pipes encountered a storm at sea. And as a result, all of the cargo shifted. And when it shifted, the pipes hit each other and the ends broke and chipped. So when they got to Long Beach, California, his job was to recut the ends of every one of those pipes. And he spent 4 months doing nothing but that. And all he had was a face shield. No respirator, no mask. Well, when you're using a high-speed carbide grinding wheel or blade to cut a cement pipe, it shoots a jet stream of dust right at you. So the face shield blocked the tiny particles of cement, but not the dust that he was breathing all day, every day for 4 months. And what we discovered is that the Japanese government in the early 1960s was heavily subsidizing their industries to get competitive after World War II. And they subsidized the cost of manufacturing and shipping this pipe to the United States. And that's how they could compete. When we realized that was the source of the pipe, we did a lot of investigation. In fact, my law partner, Hendler Flores, and I even went to Japan and interviewed experts and people who knew about the manufacturing plant that was there. In fact, the plant was in the middle of a residential community in a small Japanese city of 400,000 people called Amagasaki. And as a result of it being in the middle of a residential neighborhood, there were over 1,000 cases of mesothelioma in people who just lived around the plant. This was referred to in Japan as Kubota shock. That's the rough translation, because so many people had been exposed to this deadly asbestos in the middle of a residential neighborhood where they were manufacturing it. Well, we went after the Japanese company because they had a U.S. affiliate, a U.S. subsidiary here. And we also went after the distributor of the pipe who our client worked for. Well, that distributor had an exclusive deal with this Japanese company. And there was a lot of evidence that we were trying to develop about their business relationship. Well, their defense lawyers told us, well, the president and owner of this distributor, he's not well enough to testify. So his daughter, who was secretary of the company, is going to testify. So we were taking the deposition of the owner's daughter, who was secretary of the company, to try to find out where all the records were about the business relationship between the distributor, her father's company, and the manufacturer in Japan. And as we were cross-examining her and boxing her in question by question, she finally just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to lie anymore. I don't care what my lawyers told me. I have all the records. They're at my father's ranch in a storage room, and they told me not to tell you. And the lawyer for her was jumping in and instructing her not to answer and trying to stop the deposition. And it was a true Perry Mason moment. And that just opened up the case. And as a result, the case settled for a very significant amount. And it was the settlement actually occurred after 3 exhaustive days of negotiation. The decision makers for the Japanese company and their insurance company asked us to come in to a settlement conference between Christmas and New Year's, because the trial was starting at the end of January or the beginning of February. So they asked us to meet them halfway in Hawaii. We flew to Hawaii. We spent 3 days in a basement conference room of one of the hotels on Waikiki Beach, never seeing the light of day, never seeing the beach, never getting to really enjoy Hawaii. But we negotiated nonstop for 3 days and finally produced a very significant settlement. And we were able to report to our client the settlement at night. It was about 9 o'clock at night in Hawaii, which made it about 1 a.m. in Texas where he was. But we called him and he was elated at the result and that he was able to see the closure of the case and the result of the case. And ironically, he died about 6 weeks later, the day before we were going to start trial.